Good evening and welcome. Tonight I'm going to read you a bedtime story set in the Philippines. It's called Tuko and the Birds. It's by Shirley Climo and illustrated by Francisco X. Mora. Now, I looked up a little bit about some of the animals in this book. In particular, this big lizard that's found in the Philippines that make this Tuko sound. And if you've never heard it before, I recommend looking up Tuko Philippines lizard, however you want to search it, and really hear what these things sound like. One, they are so loud, and they're nocturnal, so they make noise at night. And two, they're gigantic. They're like the size of this book. Like, they're very, very large lizards. So, yeah. They're very interesting creatures, and the birds are really cool too. So let's just get right into it. Let me read you a bedtime story. Tuko and the Birds. Author's note. According to Filipino legend, a giant once hurled a huge rock into the sky. It fell like a space boulder into the Pacific Ocean and broke to bits. Some pieces sank beneath the waves, but 7,083 of them floated and became the Philippine Islands. The fable of Tuko and the Birds has been told for many years. The tokay gecko, a large lizard found throughout Southeast Asia, is called a tuko in the Philippines. Its name comes from the sound of its hoarse cry, often as loud as the bark of a dog. Legend says that whenever a tuko swallows anything, it calls its name 5 times. Many Filipinos believe these geckos bring good luck, and some children keep them as pets. The Philippine Eagle is the largest of the 800 species of birds found in the Philippines today. Standing over 3 feet tall with a wingspan of almost 8 feet, the eagle is the official symbol of the Republic of the Philippines. Although many people doubt the truth of this old fable, it is still a favorite tale. The storytellers simply nod their heads and say, "Bahala na," or "Whatever happens, happens." It's their way of pointing out that anything in the world is possible. Once, on the Philippine island of Luzon, a little house stood all by itself on top of Mount Pinatubo. The walls were made of bamboo poles, and the roof was thatched with palm or nipa leaves. The house perched on stilts above the mountainside, watching over the bay of the city of Manila. Over the years, trees grew tall and hid the house from view. Wild gourd vines twisted over the steep mountain path, and the hut was forgotten by all but the sharp-eyed birds. They flew into the hidden house to practice singing. "Choo-wit," chirruped the blue and red robin. "Perchoo," cooed the green pigeon. "Creo, creo," chuckled the laughing thrush. A small varlet kept time by calling "tok, tok, tok." Some birds hummed, some whistled, but Haribon the eagle was too large to squeeze inside with the others. He listened from his perch in the breadfruit tree outside the door. In the evenings, the breeze carried the bird songs down the mountainside. Hearing it, babies stopped crying, cats stopped washing, dogs stopped scratching fleas, and on the sandy bottom of the bay, a giant clam closed its shell. The men of Manila pulled in their fishing nets. The women put away their cooking pots, and the children stopped playing hide and seek. "It's bedtime," they said. "The birds are singing their goodnight songs." The birds sang until the sun disappeared in the sea. Then they flew up to the rafters and slept until the jungle fowl crowed at dawn. One moonlit night, the birds were suddenly awakened by an ear-splitting sound. "Tuko, tuko, 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 tuko." Tail feathers stood up straight, and birds popped into the air like shuttlecocks. The noise was louder than the bellow of a water buffalo. The little bamboo hut wobbled on its skinny, stilt legs, and nipa leaves whirled down from the roof. When everything was still again and it was quiet enough to hear a feather fall, the varlet piped, "What was that?" "A volcano," declared the pigeon. "I heard it rumble." "An earthquake," said the thrush. "I saw the roof shake." A typhoon, said the robin. I felt the wind blow. A monster, shrieked the mynah, and there it is. Peering down from their perches, the birds saw something dreadful crouched by the door. The creature was the size of a young crocodile. Its head was broad, its tail was long, and its legs were short and stubby. Yellow eyes bulged like a frog's, and from its pointy nose to its 20 toes, it was covered with orange spotted scales. What are you? Quavered the pigeon. I told you my name. I told you 5 times, the creature snapped. I am Tuko the gecko, and I've come to sing. With us? The birds looked at one another in alarm. How did you find our house? I followed my nose, said Tuko, and your noise. He rolled his eyes. I may stay forever. Beaks dropped open, but not so much as a peep came out. Lost your voices? The lizard asked. Lucky for you, I still have mine. Stretching his mouth wide, he roared, Tuko, 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 Tuko. The eagle stuffed feathers into his ears, trying to block the dreadful sound. All night long, the little house trembled with Tuko's cries. In the morning, the sleepless birds slumped on their roosts, plumes drooping and feathers frayed. Wasn't that grand? Tuko asked. The gecko grinned at the birds, showing 2 rows of sharp teeth. I'll sing for you again after my nap. Then he crawled onto a sleeping mat on the floor and pulled a nipa leaf over his head. Haripon the eagle eyed the sleeping blizzard. Tuko must go, he declared. Go where? Asked the robin. To the swamp, Haripon replied, to sing with the frogs. But what if he doesn't want to? Asked the worried jungle fowl. The eagle scratched his head with a talon. We could give him a special goodbye present, he said. Bugs and beetles, beetles and bugs, the parrot chanted loudly. That's what lizards like. Shh, warned Haripon. But the palm frond had already begun to twitch. From underneath, a hoarse voice shouted, Quiet, please. When Tuko woke up that evening, he found a basket beside him. In it were 24 squirming, wriggling, jumping, hopping, slithering, scuttling insects. Ah, bah! The gecko cried in surprise. Snacks! They're your goodbye present, said the robin. We think you will like the mangrove swamp below much better. I would never leave such nice neighbors as you, Tuko protested. The swamp has a lot more bugs, the thrush pointed out. No, 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 the lizard barked, slapping his tail on the mat. The swamp is too damp. What if I get a sore throat? Then I couldn't sing or eat. Tuko finished a cricket from the basket. Mussar up, he said. Delicious. The birds watched Tuko's long tongue dart in and out, thwacking the bugs as fast as lightning. Zap, 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 zap. All gone, Tuko grumbled, shaking the basket. I only swallowed 3 crickets, 4 locusts, 5 flies, 3 moths, 8 mosquitoes, and a cockroach. 24 in all, agreed the varlet. He had kept count. I always call 5 times after I eat anything, Tuko boasted, so I must sing 120 times tonight. Please don't, begged the rice bird. Nothing is too much trouble for my friend, said the gecko. Tuko, 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 Tuko. Then he roared his name 115 more times. The noise was so loud that it blew Haripon right out of the tree. Every night for a whole week the gecko thundered his 2-note tune. The weary birds, unable to sing or sleep, began to lose their feathers. The jungle fowl were so tired they couldn't even crow. The people of Manila were tired too. Without the birds' good-night songs, no one knew when to go to bed. During the day, Tuko chased insects across the walls and hung upside down by his sticky toes from the rafters, making such terrible faces that the smaller birds squawked and flew away. Now our nestlings just copy that lizard's horrible cry. They don't even try to learn our song, wailed the robin. If Tuko won't go, then we will have to leave, sighed the wagtail. Don't be hasty, said Haribon. Let me think. The eagle spent the morning brooding in the breadfruit tree. At noon he pumped his wings and sailed into the sky. He circled over the island of Luzon until his keen eyes spied something dangling from the branch of a tall tree. It was the size and color of a coconut. Ha! Exclaimed Haribon. A wasp's nest. The eagle swooped down. Carefully he snipped the hive from the branch with his strong beak. Very carefully he flew back with it to Mount Pinatubo. Very, very carefully he put it down outside the little house. From inside came Tuko's noisy snores. Yisinga, Haribon called. Wake up! The lizard poked his nose out the door. Do not disturb, he scolded. Then he saw the wasp's nest. Is that a coconut? It's much better than a coconut, Haribon answered. It's buzzing, Tuko cried. Is something alive inside? See for yourself, said the eagle. With his sharp toenails, Tuko ripped open the hive. Out swarmed hundreds of angry, stinging wasps. Out flicked Tuko's tongue. Zap, zap, zap. The gecko swallowed the wasps so fast that not one of them had time to sting. In a few moments the hive was empty, and the astonished birds heard the wasps buzzing inside the lizard. Tuko, 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 hiccuped the gecko, patting his noisy stomach. Tasty, he told the eagle. Aye, groaned Haribon. Wasps must be your favorite food. Oh no, exclaimed Tuko. I like rhinoceros beetles best. They're so nice and chewy. Really? Haribon said with a sly smile. Perhaps I can find some for you. Now? Morning is the best time for beetle hunting, the eagle answered. Rhinoceros beetles for breakfast, cried Tuko. Check that tree stump at sunrise tomorrow, said Haribon. He turned to the birds watching from the doorway. Just wait, he promised them. Haribon knew exactly what he needed and where to find it. A grove of special trees grew on the other side of the island, and the eagle glided to the top of one of them. It was a geta, a gum tree. The eagle pecked the trunk with his beak. Tuck, tuck, tuck. Sap oozed from the holes in the bark. Drop by drop, Haribon caught the milky liquid in half a coconut shell. Plop, plop, plop. The sun was already setting before the shell was full. Flying slowly so as not to spill a drop, the eagle returned to Mount Pinatubo. There, by the light of the moon, Haribon quietly shaped the rumpery sap into 5 fat rhinoceros beetles. Meanwhile, inside the nipa hut, the lizard noisily shouted his name. Tuko, 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 Tuko. The eagle lined up his imitation beetles on the stump and eyed them doubtfully. They didn't look very real. Luckily, that greedy lizard never looks before he bites, said Haribon. He flapped up to his breadfruit tree to sleep. Tuko's loud voice woke the eagle at dawn. Beetles! Beautiful beetles! Haribon saw the gecko squatting outside the bird's house. There he is, squinting at the stump. Rhinoceros beetles, he said, for your breakfast. The gecko dashed to the stump and popped the first beetle into his mouth. Tuko, he shouted. Tuko, he cried, cramming in a second beetle. Tuko, he added for the third. Tuk. The gecko began struggling to swallow the fourth. They must be nice and chewy, said the eagle. Tuko pushed in the 5th beetle. Tuh, he mumbled. Squeaky chair. Is something wrong? Haribon asked. The lizard couldn't answer. He couldn't even open his mouth. His tongue was stuck tight to his teeth with geta gum. Tuko dug at his mouth with his right foot. It stuck too. He dug with his left front foot, and his toenails clung to his snout like flies to fly paper. He flopped on his back, pawing frantically at his nose with both hind feet. But the gluey gum caught them fast. Tuko whipped his tail around to his jaw, trying to shake loose all 4 feet. Instead, he trapped his tail in the rubbery gum and rolled about on the ground like a hoop. "Where are you going, my friend?" asked Haribon. "Grrrr," Tuko growled. "Swamp, did you say?" asked the eagle. "A fine idea." "Humph, humph, humph," huffed the furious lizard, spinning in circles faster and faster. "You seem in a hurry," Haribon said. "Shall I help?" With one wing, the eagle gave the gecko a little push. Tuko bounced over the cord vines and down the mountain path like an old soft tire. Flip, flop, flip, flop, flip, flop. "Palam!" cried Haribon after him. "Goodbye." The commotion brought the birds to the house. "What a shame," Haribon told them. "You missed saying Palam to Mr. Tuko." "Goodbye?" exclaimed the violet. "You mean he's gone?" "He suddenly decided to visit the swamp," said the eagle. Speechless, the birds stared at one another. Then, all together, they threw back their heads, opened their beaks, and began to sing. That evening, the breeze once again carried the sound of birdsong down the mountain. Everything and everyone stopped to listen. The people of Manilad didn't ask why the birds were silent for a week. "Bahalana," they said, and went to bed. Tuko never told anyone what had taken place on Mount Pinatubo. When he was able to open his mouth once more, he was too embarrassed to say a word, but he couldn't forget the little bamboo hut with the nipa roof. Even today, the gecko searches for another house to practice his singing, and on moonlit nights his voice can be heard calling, "Tuko, Tuko, 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 Tuko." And that is the end of our story tonight. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this was a nice, relaxing bedtime story for you. So now that bedtime story's over, it's time to go to sleep. So go ahead and close your laptop, darken your phone, or however you watch this video. And let's close our eyes and relax. Think of all the little geckos running around outside. Having a good time at night eating all the little bugs outside. Well, you are nice and safe and cozy where you're sleeping. Relaxing and cozy warm, right? At least I hope so. Have a very, very good night.